When a nation experiences tragedy, it often finds itself lost and unsure of what to do moving forward. The policy that it chooses will have a profound effect on its people and on its efforts at achieving justice or reconciliation later on down the line. To better decide what policy to take, a nation can benefit from a historical look towards the policies taken by past nations. This video seeks to examine the actions taken by South Africa following apartheid and Spain following the crimes of the Civil War and the Franco regime. In order to accurately do this, it is necessary to first take a look at the history of these two events in order to see what occurred. Spain's national tragedy began in 1936 with the outbreak of the Spanish Civil War. The war lasted until 1939 and saw atrocities committed by both the conservative and liberal sides of the war. The war ended in 1939 with a victory by dictator Francisco Franco, who installed his own fascist regime. Under his rule, any dissenters were put down with torture, assassinations, and disappearances, and other forms of violent coercion. This continued until the regime's collapse following Franco's death in 1975. After his death, Spain sought to move forward by installing a democracy and began a transitionary period. In 1977, as part of their transition, Spain enacted an Amnesty Act, which codified the new government's policy of enacting a pacto de olvido, or a pact to forget the past and move on from its events without any further conflict or violence. South Africa's national tragedy began in 1948 when the ruling National Party began to institutionalize discrimination against black South Africans. As part of this apartheid, black South Africans were systematically deprived of their rights and even later stripped of citizenship. Over 3.5 million black South Africans were forced to leave their homes and move into segregated ghetto communities, where they received less police protection and lower quality educational and medical services. Under apartheid, those who dissented or protested were put down with violence until 1994, when a combination of internal protest and external pressure forced the removal of the old government and led to the creation of a new one which sought to investigate the past. To this end, they created the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in 1995, which sought to investigate the crimes and actions of those responsible for apartheid. One can learn a lot by examining the specific differences in policy used by each nation. Spain and South Africa employed very different methods of addressing their respective national tragedies, and had very different results as well. By analyzing the effects of each nation's policy, it is possible to gain a sense of what did and did not work, and to take that information and apply it to similar cases moving forward. Since the end of Francoism, Spain's actions can be summarized as simply forgetting the past. The 1977 amnesty law is a perfect example of that policy. It was passed by a government which was still largely full of former Francoists, and was thus passed in their self-interest of avoiding prosecution. The amnesty law barred any investigation or trials regarding crimes committed by those under Franco. It also released political prisoners but did not compensate them for their illegal detention. The law was passed amidst talk of pardoning, reconciliation, and moving forward without bringing up the painful memories of the past. Since the law's enactment, a similar policy has continued. Spanish officials have repeatedly denied resources and legal permission to those who want to exhume mass graves and investigate other similar crimes committed under Franco. When investigations have occurred, as in the case of the investigation into the bombing of Guernica, they are often given very few resources and are unable to discover anything new, thus rendering them useless. This policy has continued stubbornly, even in the face of great hypocrisy. The United Nations has called for investigations into the crimes under Franco, but Spain has refused to implement any such investigations, even as Spanish judges have called for similar investigations in Guatemala and Argentina. Spain's policy continues to consist solely of pretending as if the past did not happen. South Africa's approach to addressing apartheid seems to be a polar opposite of the one taken by Spain. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which began its work in 1996 and ended it in 1998, was given great legal and financial power by the new South African government. The greatest of these powers it was given was its ability to subpoena both witnesses and evidence, meaning the Commission was able to legally demand that those responsible for crimes under apartheid come in to testify and present all documents related to their crimes. Such subpoenas led to the public and private hearings of many witnesses and those accused of crimes. By the time the Commission had finished its work in 1998, it had taken over 20,000 statements from such individuals. Another key tool given to the Commission was its ability to grant amnesty to those responsible for crimes in exchange for their testimony, confession, and genuine sign of repentance. Over 7,000 applications for amnesty were taken, which provided the Commission with another source of information regarding the crimes of apartheid. The Commission did not merely investigate the crimes of apartheid. Once it had finished its investigation, the Commission published all of its findings into a comprehensive set of 5 volumes, listing specific details regarding the number of crimes committed, the identities of those affected, and most importantly, the identity of those responsible. These volumes were made available to the general public in order to allow everybody to know what occurred during apartheid. Following the publication of this report, the Commission began the process of prosecuting those denied amnesty who were deemed responsible for crimes under apartheid. The effects of Spain's Pacto de Olvido are largely negative. There is no clear info on the numbers, names, or any other similar information regarding the crimes committed under Franco. And estimates for the number of people killed or disappeared range wildly from 200 to 400,000. The large variance in estimations is due to the fact that many public records have been destroyed, and without any official investigations, there's no way to accurately determine how many people were killed. There have been no trials either. However, a lack of investigation or prosecution into those responsible for crimes was the point of the Pacto de Olvido. The amnesty law was said to be a trade-off in order to secure a peaceful, cooperative transition into democracy by the Spanish people. However, to this end, Spain has also been largely unsuccessful. Though research is sparse, what little there is suggests that in Spain, society is not completely moving on from the trauma of its national tragedy. Research indicates high rates of fear and even collective guilt over crimes committed under Francoism. Additionally, polls show worry over conflict re-emerging if investigations were to be pursued, as well as high rates of ignorance regarding the basic facts of the Civil War and the crimes committed under Francoism. Spain's policy left it and its people without any information regarding the scope of the crimes committed, and Spain's people remain conflicted and unsure regarding the crimes committed under Francoism. South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission had some positive results. 5,392 individuals were denied amnesty after applying for it and were held responsible for their crimes. Though few of these individuals have been brought to trial, they were all publicly named in the Commission's report, making their crimes a matter of public record. Some of the higher-ranking members of both the police and the government have been convicted in trials. However, many more have been acquitted or never brought to trial at all. 21,000 victims of apartheid were paid reparations, but they were only paid partially before government funds ran out. The Commission's subpoena power allowed it to collect evidence even when documents were destroyed. This, combined with the publication of the 5-volume report, has led to a South African population that is largely knowledgeable about the events and crimes of apartheid. However, anger continues today in South Africa over the lack of convictions and reparation payments. In the end, each nation's policy had its shortcomings, but that employed by South Africa was able to hold some people accountable and create an official narrative of what happened during apartheid, which it made available to its entire public. Most importantly, it was able to accomplish this while avoiding the political chaos feared by Spanish officials when they passed the 1977 amnesty law. The two major failures of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, that is, the lack of prosecutions and the lack of reparation payments, can be attributed to inadequate government resources, signifying that more governmental support could have helped address these issues. These two cases suggest that the best course of action for a government to take, if it wants to hold criminals responsible and discover what happened during a national tragedy, is to provide strong financial and legal support by the government to official efforts of investigation. This is the method shown to provide the best results and can be applied to upcoming similar cases, such as the termination of hostilities in Syria or any future efforts by Spain to finally investigate what happened under Franco. By doing so, a government can have a better knowledge of the past and better serve its people.